Getting close enough here. We'll go ahead and call to order if that works for you guys.
Elam?
Here.
Farrell?
Here.
Keach?
Here.
Knepp?
Here.
Pagel?
Here.
Ritterbusch?
Here.
Smock?
Here.
Wesley?
Here.
Zobrist?
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you very much. First order of business here is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was July 28th, 2014. Everyone has a copy of those minutes. Have anyone seen any inconsistencies or changes required for that? Hearing no changes, move for approval.
So moved.
We have a move and a second.
Second.
And the second came from Laura.
She's trusty for that.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
So the next part of our meeting this evening is the public hearing section, and we'll ask our counsel to speak briefly to the public about that. Thank you.
Public hearing is being held tonight pursuant to published notice. Any person wishing to address the Plan Commission will be afforded an opportunity to do so. Any person addressing the Plan Commission will be sworn in by our court reporter and will give their testimony under oath or affirmation. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Plan Commission will make a recommendation to the Village Board. The Plan Commission makes recommendations only. The Village Board is responsible for taking final action on these matters.
Thank you very much. The first petition this evening under the public hearing is petition number 14-09, special use, SP. This is for Bethel Lutheran Church requesting a special use permit for 325 East Queenwood Road, currently zoned R1, to allow the tower, a 52-foot tall tower. Is there anyone here from the public or from the petitioner, I should say, that would like to speak on this? If you'd please rise and let her sign you in here, swear you in.
Swear you have, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
When you get to the podium, if you'd be so kind as to state your name for us. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Jose. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I live at 1241 East Monroe Street in Morton, Illinois. I'm here as a representative of the church. I work for BLDD Architects. So I was the project architect on this project. We're seeking special use for the church. They want to do a lateral move from their current location to where their existing school is located, which is what you're seeing up on the screen. The proposed location of the school is actually on this side. And what you're seeing here is a 3D image of the exterior looking from this direction, looking north. This is actually an image that we did back in March, so you'll have to forgive me, it's a little bit different than what you have. I believe this is actually a little bit shorter than what we actually went with, or it's showing a little bit smaller. But it does give a basic idea of the form of the building. In the packet of drawings that we gave you, there was elevations and a plan. What is driving the height of the church is the desire of the church to achieve this lateral move from what they have to what their new church will be. So what they have currently is a balcony and in their sanctuary. So in the new church, there's a desire to have a balcony to increase the seating capacity without increasing the building footprint. So in order to have a balcony, we need an elevator. So where we have the elevator located is actually in the corner of the sanctuary over here, but it requires a certain clearance height, which is driving where the start of our roof is and our pitch. So that's how we came up with the roof ridge of the sanctuary. Now the idea of the tower, which is what is exceeding the 35 feet also at 52 feet is we have this progression of elements, starting with the canopy element tower, which has a cross, and then it progresses into our clerestory, and then we wanted to create emphasis at the sanctuary itself. Because this building is set so far off of Kingwood, we're trying to make it stand out as a church, with its own identity from the school, but as one unit also. We don't believe that this special use permit will be detrimental to the public welfare or the property. That's our belief. The distance to the high sanctuary roof to the property line is approximately 125 feet. The distance between the sanctuary tower, which is this element here, and the property line on this side is approximately 200 feet. So there's a significant distance between where these tall elements are going to be located and the property line. The building itself we're using materials of stone and brick to create a grounding and a solid effect, aesthetic. We have everything below 16 feet is either stone or brick. We have elements here, and actually this element here at the sanctuary above 16 feet, due to budgetary, is EFIS, which is exterior insulation and finish system. Is there any questions?
Anyone from the commission have questions for the petitioner this evening regarding this? I have one question, and I'll propose it probably both to you, and Roger, you may be able to speak to this too. Other churches in the area, is this consistent with designs that they're using currently as well?
With the height of the building?
Correct.
Other churches that we've worked on, BLDD, where we do a lot of churches, yes.
Yeah.
Typically when you have an elevator, anytime you get into an elevator part where you have 2 stories, you'll have that clearance that you have to achieve for the elevator. And in order to shed the water appropriately and the ice and snow against this large roof, we wanted to go with a 4 to 12 pitch of the roof.
Okay, great. Any questions here from the table this evening for the petitioner?
Will there be any lighting on any of that?
Any lighting? Yes. We're doing a little bit of accent lighting. We have actually a cover cross that's standing off of this stone here. It will be backlit. So it won't be like in your face lighting, but it will have some edge lighting that you see around the cross itself. We have some in-ground lighting at these corner elements to emphasize the stone, but we don't have anything that is going to go into any of the neighbors' land. There's nothing on the back side that's going to bleed in or anything like that. Just on the front side that faces the street. We just have the required lighting on the building for safety, for the minimal that's required by code.
Right. Other questions, anyone? I appreciate your time coming out tonight. You can go ahead and be seated. I'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to get up and ask questions?
I just have a question, just up there, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, you can talk to the petitioner directly.
Are you saying that it's not possible to have an elevator in a building for 2 stories and have the building less than 43 feet?
I'm not saying, I'm saying for this instance, with the configuration of where the elevator is located in the plan, it does not work. I'm not saying any instance it does not work.
But there could be the case that you create a building like this and have an elevator and meet city code.
Not for this instance. Not for this floor plan. It would not work. But if you changed the complete floor plan and if you had your elevator in the center, which doesn't usually work for most churches, then you can pretty much do anything if you don't want to meet a certain aesthetic.
how high that corner of Main Church?
This corner here,
That corner, that which is closest to my home, so that is 100 foot from that church to my lot line. So it's 125 foot from that church to the back of my house. So I'm concerned about the height you're talking about.
we have a site plan.
I think it's 29 feet if I'm looking at it right on here.
It's the end of the lowest part of the sanctuary roof is 27 feet. So on the back side right there.
27 to the highest part.
The highest part, the ridge, is 42 feet. 42 feet 9 3/8.
Versus what normal would be 35.
Just one more question. You said that the tower there, that's meant to draw attention from, is offset from the road, is to draw attention to the building. Is that correct?
Yes, this tower here is to draw attention to the building, as it's a stepped back effect.
Any other comments from the public?
Just have one general about process. When you applied for your building permit, are these the exact plans that were submitted for approval?
This drawing right here? No, they get what's submitted in the packet of information, the 3 drawings, plus a lot more information. They usually don't get a rendering like this. This is usually full.
Not that, but I mean, the city knew when they approved the building permit that the building exceeded city code. Is that correct?
They knew that they would need to come before us for special use, and then the city, the trustees would be able to vote on it as well.
Okay, so there's no building permit.
Well, actually, Roger, that's not true. There is a building permit based on site, but preliminary plans change during the construction process often. So generally, the city works directly, and if I step over, you jump in, but typically the developer or the builder, in this case, the architects and engineers, will work with the city on a case-by-case basis, continuing to grow the plan as it grows. If there's an issue, the city steps in and says, this is too much, you're going to have to push back. It's kind of they try to work together before it comes here so that it isn't a lot of money wasted. Yeah.
Why would they wait until we're ready to dig the foundations to bring this forward?
Well, we're kind of getting off point, but what I would say is that's between the owner and the architect and engineer, how many changes and redraws and drafts of the print go out. If there's no other comments and no other questions from the table or the public, do I have a motion?
Sorry, I wanted to speak as well.
Oh, please go ahead and stand up, get sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
When you get up, just your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Monica McGill, and I live at
You're gonna have
46.
to speak up
Ah,
here.
okay, is that better? I don't even think this is on, but,
That's mostly for the TV.
okay. Hi there. My name is Monica McGill. I live at 46 Brook Circle, which is adjacent to the Queenwood property in question. I originally got the notice for the special use permit in the mail, and I was a little shocked to see that a tower might be going up on the property right next to me that was going to exceed city code by 17 feet. So we started to do some digging, and many of my neighbors are here tonight. And I also acquired the list that was sent out of the people who were notified about the special meeting. And out of the 63 people, I was able to talk to 31. And out of those, 20 have signed a petition, along with myself, to ask you to hold the existing code to 35 feet for the property owners at Queenwood. So granting the special use permit will adversely affect the existing neighborhoods for the following reasons. A building with a height of 43 to 52 feet will dominate the landscape of the neighborhood, dwarfing the existing neighborhoods near it. The 35-foot height limit will keep the building in perspective with our adjacent neighborhoods and the 3 church buildings, 3 on Queenwood, that already exist within walking distance of the property. When compared to a 35-foot tall building, a 43-foot to 52-foot tall building will have a more negative impact on the views we currently value. When compared to a 35-foot tall building, a 43-foot to 52-foot tall building will reduce the amount of morning and evening sunlight to our homes. The majority, if not all, existing not-for-profit organizations that contribute to the community's welfare also simultaneously are able to adhere to village code. Per their application, the property owners state that their existing building has a sanctuary with a balcony. From a layman's perspective, their existing building also appears to meet village code, showing that it is possible to design a building that simultaneously meets the needs of the property owners as well as meet existing code. The tower itself stands 17 feet above code, and as we just heard, the tower serves purely as a decoration and does not contribute to the welfare of the community in any way. The reduction of the height of the building and the tower to meet village code will not create an undue hardship on the property owners. In addition to the above, while talking to my neighbors, many expressed concern that granting a special use permit for this non-hardship case may create legal precedent for other property owners in our area of town to do the same. As you know, there's a lot of places there for future development. They also express a desire for the property owners to be neighborly by adhering to existing code. And finally, they express their concerns that if they themselves must follow the village code, the property owners should also be required to follow these codes impartially and without bias. Now, I don't have any pictures of here, but I did go around town and as part of research, took some pictures of the current building that they have, the current churches on Queenwood that are going to be their neighbors, and also other churches in town. And you can see that these all adhere, or they appear to adhere to village code. Now, can I pass these out? I don't have
that's
them.
fine. Thank you.
And I also have a petition. In the interest of time, while we review the things you just handed out, are there any questions from the table here specifically?
I have a question. Is it possible to get the balcony inside the existing, the original building design without increasing the roof height and roof pitch? And I understand that the roof pitch and height increased because of the addition of the balcony sometime along,
For the existing building or?
well, the plans are originally submitted, were there plans originally submitted for a building permit without the balcony?
No,
Oh, okay.
the balcony's been there the whole time.
It had the whole time.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I might intervene for 1 minute. I think, just for everyone's benefit, it might be useful to clarify the terms of the village code. I think there may be some misunderstanding
It
about
seems
that.
there might be, yeah.
There is a code that sets a limit of 35 feet, but within that ordinance is also the provision for the special use for
Correct.
buildings that may exceed 35 feet. So we are not talking about a violation of code. We're
That's correct.
talking about a debate before the Plan Commission of whether or not to grant a special use based on the proposed design, but it is not a code violation.
Yeah, no, that's actually, we understand that, and I think that's something we'll bring up here after, I'm sure, after everyone's reviewed everything.
I have a question. On the agenda, it says this is consistent with other church requests in the past. Do you know what's the most recent one that's involved a church, and do you happen to know the heights?
The two most recent ones are Grace Church with their structure, which is 70 foot. The one prior to that was the First Baptist Church on Jefferson Street. After the church was done, they came in and requested to put the steeple on, which is 54 foot, 8 inches.
Okay, thank you.
And when was that last one? When was the First Baptist?
The First Baptist is on Jefferson
No, I
Street.
mean, when was that granted? What,
That was in 91.
91? And Grace is, I would like to share too,
On
because I
East
went out there,
Jefferson.
took a picture.
Yeah.
And 3 sides of its neighbors are cornfields and soybeans. And the other one is just a development area that's just going up now. So there aren't that many homes out there.
4 sides, 4.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the table have comments or questions?
So you said for the heights of these pictures, they are all, what? Did you have the heights?
I don't, because I don't have the survey tools to do that.
So Roger, do you know, you have the copy of this?
I don't.
Oh, here.
I have a comment, and I may have a bias here because I am an architect and I design churches, so take that with a grain of salt, my fellow committee members. But
Always.
I remember when the village changed the ordinance so that the restriction would be so low on a church building, which makes us probably the only community in the area that has such a restriction. And it was, at the time, I thought it was a foolish decision to change it, but we had a city engineer who thought that was a good idea. And his thought was, well, we should be telling them what to do, not them telling us what to do. And so I thought that was a bad decision. The international building codes that we use allow for taller buildings for churches, for steeples and spires and things like this. Most zoning ordinances that you'll find in surrounding communities will also allow taller buildings for a church. Historically, churches are landmark buildings, and they are taller than the surrounding community, and it's typically not considered to be a bad thing. So I'm just telling you that I'm going to probably be voting in favor of granting the height. I don't think we need to be talking about, well, the elevator needs to be, accommodated. It's a church. It should be a little taller. It should be stand a little bit brighter in the area. And people that lived in that area, that was a cornfield when that church bought that piece of property, and they also knew that that was going to someday be a church. in that location.
I didn't,
So,
but it's just my perspective.
I know, I understand, maybe you didn't, but it was a school, and it's a public facility there. So I am in favor of granting the height restriction. I'm also in favor of changing the ordinance back to what every other community has instead of this restrictive ordinance that we have right now.
Well, I would just say that I think you're going to have a lot more meetings like this then if churches decide to build on. What stops any church in town then from adding more height in already existing neighborhoods? I think there's the reason for the code is to have everyone coexist, right? To be some uniformity across the board. 35 feet is actually very high. It's very high, and with the homes around it, it will definitely stand out, even at 35 feet.
Did you have anything else to present this evening, or?
The only question I had was, and I don't know, this is a process question too, if someone has a conflict of interest on the Plan Commission, would they typically recuse themselves from, okay.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you very much. One item of note, I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to speak, and as Trustee Newhouse had mentioned before, there's a little bit of misinformation out there that I think that this is being seen more as a variance, which it is not. The zoning code book for Morton does specifically allow for this type of use. They need to come before the Planning Commission for a recommendation to the city for final approval. The reason for that, as Mr. Keach mentioned, was largely due to former administration wanting to have the developers and the contractors answer to the city a little bit more than letting the city answer for them. That said, I'll tell you that our job here is tough because we want to make sure you guys are happy. But on the same end, we really have to abide by the rules and regulations that have been set forth in these ordinances. These are what guide us. Despite what personal opinions we may have, if we start to go off script, it's a tricky, tricky road to get back on. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that the special use permit is a very, very different item in that the allowances and the regulations are set forward already. These aren't variances that we create. These aren't things that are done on the fly. And this does sit perfectly within that. So please understand that moving forward as we vote on this. If there's no other questions from the board, are there any other questions from the board? Or the commission, I should say. Then do I have any
I was going to ask Roger, 'cause now that you have this. So on the third page of pictures, how tall is that building? And I apologize, I can't recognize the picture.
That's the top church?
Bottom.
Oh, the bottom church.
On which page?
The fourth page or the third page with pictures.
Oh, on Main Street?
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if it's not over 35 feet, just based on the height of the front door there, but I don't know an actual number. That's been there longer than I've been around.
Well, and I guess that's on to Jeff's point. When I think of a 35-foot building, I mean, for a church, I think it's hard to stay within that requirement and have it be aesthetically pleasing. And I do think that it's important for our community to have structures that are aesthetically pleasing. So I don't have a problem with it being taller than 35, especially since it's not the entire building, right? When you talk about blocking the sun and stuff like that, you're not talking about a building that's the entire floor plan of that being 52 feet tall. How tall was the original? Do you know how tall the original plan was?
Bill, I thought somebody mentioned that it was over, it's over that height.
You're saying the original?
The original.
Where we're at now?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it was 65, it was actually.
Yeah.
This is probably 40 right here.
Any further comments here from the table? I'm sorry, could you stand and tell us where you live and your name?
My name is Leslie Chin. I live at 4 Brook Circle.
Thank you.
I was just wondering if the 65-foot steeple was at the original church on Jackson or the original plans for this church? And what was the original plan for the tower on Greenwood?
It's 52 feet, is that what it says? Oh, yeah, we've dropped it down from what we're showing there, but what we've always submitted was 52.
I think she's saying that the aesthetic plan showed a taller one, but the plan.
On that, is it?
Yeah.
From that plan that we're showing there, I would assume that we dropped it 5 to 10 feet. It was about 15 to 20 feet higher than the ridge. And the one we're proposing is only less than 10 feet above the ridge of the.
Yeah, it does come down quite a bit in the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further comments from the table? Hearing none, do we have a motion on petition number 1409 SP?
Need to close the hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Say that again?
Need to close the hearing.
Oh, I appreciate that, yeah, true enough. All right, so we're going to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? I forgot where we were. It's a long deliberation.
So moved.
We have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
We don't need a motion to close the public hearing. You declare it closed. So the motion that you would ask, I would suggest you would ask for is a motion on the petition itself.
Our Robert's rules are getting a little out of order here. But I'm glad to see just Jeff Keach was willing to second that. Okay, so we've closed the public hearing section of this. It's on the table. We're moving on?
Was a motion made, there was a motion and a second. Was that a motion and a second to grant pursuant to the petition?
Yes.
Do you have those, Roger?
I do now. And
The second was
Jeff
Phil.
the second.
Phil.
Phil.
So we have a motion made and seconded.
I'll read the roll.
Thank you.
Keach.
Yes.
Knapp.
Yes.
Pagel.
Yes.
Ritterbusch.
Abstain?
Smock.
Yes.
Westlake.
Yes.
Zobrist.
Yes.
Elam.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Trustee Newhouse will take that recommendation to the board.
Thank you. And thank all of you for your time and efforts this evening. I do appreciate it. Moving on to other business this evening, we are looking at the preliminary and final plats for Kaiser Estates, part of the east half of the west half of the southwest quarter of Section 34, T25 North, R3 West, consisting of 2.73 acres. Subject property currently lies outside the village limits, but is within the 1.5-mile radius. You should have the preliminary and final is in front of members. You can share if you need to look at the larger version. Any commentary on this, Roger, from the city?
Basically, all they're going to do is take the homestead and the building area, basically the yard, and take it out of the farm.
Okay.
So it can be sold.
And this is,
It's outside, as you said, it's outside the corporate limits, but within the 1.5 miles.
okay. Any changes from the, I mean, this is a preliminary and a final?
Right.
Yeah.
The county, everything's good with the county.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. Any questions from the table on this, guys? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the preliminary and final plat?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary and final plats.
Thank you, Mr. Ritterbusch.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second.
Second. Let's see here. Pagel.
Yes.
Ritterbusch.
Yes.
Schmuck.
Yes.
Westlake.
Yes.
Zobrist.
Yes.
Elam.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Keach.
Yes.
Neff.
Yes.
Great. Next order of other business here is our nomination for vice chairman. I didn't see everybody duck under the table.
I locked the door.
I appreciate that. That'll help this process take a little less time than last time. I think last time it only was successful because I was out.
I was like, last time was pretty quick.
Yeah, I was gone. So what I'll do is I'll open this up for nominations. Obviously, if you're nominated and for whatever reason you do not wish to carry that nomination, you may stand up and withdraw your name, unless you're Jeff Keach, in which case you are not allowed to do that. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Are you volunteering, Jeff?
For those playing at home, it's only a matter of time before Jeff's name is said, so please, someone just get it out of the way.
I nominate Laura Elam.
There you go. Nice move. Well played.
Name withdrawn.
I nominate Jeff Keach.
Well played. Any further nominations on the table?
I renominate Laura Elam.
I renominate Jeff Keach.
I'll second Jeff's nomination.
Okay, so in this instance, we have two nominations.
Laura did withdraw. She withdrew.
She withdrew immediately. You don't know what fun you're missing? Should we go ahead and get a vote?
We're voting for Jeff?
We're voting for Jeff.
Yes.
Perfect. I think it's a good one. Jeff is our new vice chair.
I didn't hear a vote.
So
All in favor?
if you're,
I'll read the vote if you'd like.
I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Let's get it in the book.
You want to know who said no?
I'm going to take, just for procedural matters, I would take the nomination as a motion, and the second from the end of the table is a second, which would put the question to a call.
Perfect.
Okay, so I have Don Westlake made the motion. Laura Elam seconded the motion for Jeff Keach to be our vice chair. And Ritterbusch?
Yes.
Schmock?
Absolutely.
Pardon?
Yes.
You just are open, glad it didn't get to you.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Westlake.
I was too.
Zobrist?
Yes.
Elam?
Yes.
Farrell?
Yes.
Keach?
Abstain.
Neff?
Yes.
And Bagel?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You'll do a wonderful
Well
job.
played.
Thanks for stepping up, Jeff.
Hopefully you're learning how to,
Is there a class I need to take?
yeah, how to breach Robert's rules. We've been doing it all night. So pay
I've been
attention to
doing
me.
it all
Learn
night.
I don't look like Farrell?
You're learning everything you need right here, buddy. Okay, other business is concluded. Mr. Spengler, do you have anything this evening for us?
I have nothing at all.
All right, Trustee Newhouse?
Three quick things. I sent an email today. I think everybody got it, but Commissioner Westlake, and I will resend it, and see what's going on with the email system, why that's not going through. If you haven't checked your email, you can check it. It basically deals in a little historical background on some of the issues that come up with flats sometimes. And I think one of these days, before long, next 30, 60 days, you're probably going to have one that maybe is a bit controversial. And so this is just a little bit of background, but the responsibility in the end to review and to recommend to the village board belongs to you. The village office, of course, the director of public works, and other public works staff people are involved in the process that gets the plat here. So theoretically, it meets the minimum standard. But I wanted everybody to have a little background and understand it. You know, it's a fair game on your part to raise questions and to challenge assumptions. The other item that will be coming up is on September agenda, rezoning of the old Farm and Fleet property pursuant to its sale. The petitioner in that case will be the village itself. I will represent the village. and we'll be asking to rezone that from its current, I think it's B3 to I-1. You'll have the background information on that, but it is consistent with the plan for the next occupant, and it is also pretty much consistent with adjacent zoning. Detroit was founded as an industrial park, and then kind of grew in a way that was not very consistent over the years, and we wound up with mixed business and industrial use. Actually, with some other usage changes recently, will bring us back closer to the original concept. And the last item I wanted to comment on is Commissioner Keach made reference to the 35-foot height limit. I do not recall that height limit was set specifically aimed at churches. As I remember, my memory might be a little fuzzy here, it's been a long time, and some of this took place while I was not serving, I was out of the country. But I think the 35-foot limit was meant to deal with some other issues, and the reason that the special use is in there is to accommodate a legitimate request for taller structures, and I would think that church towers and steeples would fit into that category. But I will pursue that a little bit, and if
The other thing, you might be right, the other thing that I remember is that the Morton changed their ordinance for calculating a building height to be the highest peak of a building. And all the building codes use the average of the eave with the peak or the ridge. That's how it's usually calculated.
Well,
but Morton has changed it so that it's at the peak.
I
So
would-
it's another restriction on churches and other buildings.
I would certainly entertain a notion if we thought that we needed to take a second look at the ordinance to revise it. So I'll ask, I'll do a little research on that with the trustees and with village staff, but I don't, it's like other ordinances, from time to time, they need to be brought into currency, and if that's something we need to look at, then that would come back to this commission for a review and recommendation. So, but it was, as far as I know, the intent was not to limit churches. And it was when I grew up, back in the last century, literally, church, by definition, a church had a tower and a steeple, and I can't recall one from my youth that was probably much less than 40 or 50 feet, and likely more. So I think that's certainly there's a precedent. Whether or not somebody gets approval, subject to this review process, but I think the precedent is clear. That's all I have.
It's sort of after the fact, and it's sort of, someone kind of touched on it. They didn't really hammer it, but Bethel owned this church ground before any of this other development was there. And they did that because they were having problems doing what they wanted to do where they currently are. So they go to the outside of town, and they're kind of saddled with that again. So if those people didn't know what was in their backyard, that's their problem, really. It's not Bethel Lutheran's problem, because Bethel bought with the intent to build this church.
Right.
And
Could I suggest maybe looking into what our requirements are for submission for special uses? Because there are other communities who would ask for an elevation at that stage, back when we granted them special use.
Right.
Have
well,
an
how that
actual
happened,
elevation.
Jeff, was they were under the gun.
I'm not picking on them, I'm just saying.
To get going, so that we wrote a permit to allow them to build the parking lot and do the site work.
Right.
So while they're working on that, or physically working on building that, the architects were doing the church design. Well, when they finally brought it in, they were ready to start the building project, which was the first time I had a plan that had here's the height.
Well, what I'm talking about is having a little bit more information at the time, because they did come to before us to get a special use for that property.
But they didn't have the church design, Joe.
No,
Yeah.
they need to. They need to have it designed.
Yeah, and I think that's what Jeff's saying, is that
Yeah.
maybe at that point, it needs to be a full submission, which is a fair point that some of the public was making tonight, and why I was trying to, discuss that the permit for the building hadn't actually happened. It was groundwork that was.
I'm not
being
saying they broke a rule.
Right.
I
No.
just think we need to.
identify this
that
earlier.
We just might want to tighten up what our requirements are to avoid a situation like this. So that everybody, for the special use, they could come in and say they want a 100-foot tower. And we could say, that's kind of tall,
And it is.
But that's the purpose of the hearing.
Yeah, and that's the,
And
that's the purpose of the special use.
I served on this commission back during the battle, and it was a battle with Bethel Lutheran at its Missouri and Jackson Street site over its expansion plans, and the outcome of that was what drove them to come and buy this property, which at that stage was not surrounded by housing, with the expectation that they would have the school there and then ultimately relocate the church. So this is fulfillment of a plan that was in place when they acquired that property those many years ago. It's not necessarily a basis for approval, but it is the history.
Well, it was a good test of special use. I think it worked out. So, all right, is there anything else? You got a third item?
I'm done.
That was it? All right, thank you, Trustee Newhouse. That is it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I just want to add one thing.
Get you a glove.
I try to stay strict on procedure in terms of how people address you guys and try to help the commissioner or the chairman, and we kind of lost our normal procedural flow tonight. So I'm probably going to add some to my introduction to remind people that while we do have a cross-examination procedure, we have adopted a policy that limits that. Yep. So hopefully, I'm going to try to work on addressing and maybe talk to Mr. Newhouse after we're done tonight to help avoid kind of the disjointed process that happened tonight from happening again. And sorry that it happened that way, but we'll work on that so it doesn't come back up that way.
That'll be great, because that's one of those things where you want to give people the floor, you have to open it up to the public, but when the cross-examination starts, you have no way of immediately identifying whether someone has a legitimate claim, if they're within the boundary line, if they're within, so those types of things need to be presented, and it's very awkward to have everybody march up to the podium and back and forth and on and on. So we do need to tighten that up a little bit so that the public has an opportunity to express their concerns or thoughts, but also so that this table has an opportunity to both hear what's happening and be able to discuss it with the petitioner in such a way that's consistent with what our actual jobs are. It starts to turn into something where maybe we're getting involved in side battles that we don't need to be fighting. So I appreciate that. We'll address that and get it updated. Anything else? I think if we've got a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
I second.
Perfect.
And who was the second?
Karen Knapp.
Very trusty on this particular motion.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
By the way.
Thank you, Roger.